Hello everyone, Don here again with an update on what I've been up to for the past few months. I know I haven't been making any videos. The weather here has just been really cold. Only these last couple of weekends it's actually starting to warm up. Today it's beautiful out, but it's still only in the probably mid to upper 50s is all it reached today. But for the last 2 months I got sidetracked from this car and the airplane project because I was out driving one night and I hit a deer with the Fusion. So everything on the front of that car had to be replaced. Both fenders, hood, the grill pieces were busted, headlight was busted. The only thing that really wasn't damaged was the nose cover, but I ended up stripping it down and sanding it out and painting it. But I bought some used fenders and hood and had to do a little work on every one of the pieces to get them back together, but it took me like 2 months to get this thing finished. So it was like a week and a half ago I got the car all back together. And then as you guys see here, this is Loki. He's about 9 months old now. We just picked him up 2 months ago, so he's our replacement for my last husky that passed away in August. So he is full of piss and vinegar. So but anyway, today I was out, actually I was working, 1 second here, turn around. I took the K-member from the parts car apart, hit it with a pressure washer. Still a little grungy, but it's cleaner than it was. I had to pull the struts and spindles and lower control arms off of it, but I'm going to be reusing this unit here in the car. I think it's probably in a little better condition. Before it goes in, it'll have to be completely cleaned up a lot better than it is. And then before I put it in, I'm going to finish welding what the factory doesn't. I'm going to get in here and weld all around this stuff here. It'll all be extra reinforcement. It'll strengthen the piece up more and make it less flexible. It's an old trick from the days gone by for these cars, is to stiffen these up. But this is still only meant to be a summer street car, just for cruising and such. So what I've been doing, as you can see, got the car on its side, and what I did, if you remember, I had these torque boxes ripped out, and these are the replacements from Team Z, is the company that makes these things right there, Team Z. It's all 1/8" plate steel. It's a nice little kit they sell. They just all put together, and this one's just held together with tape. But it gives you all these different adjustment points for the lower control arm. This arm, being that it's bigger, is not going to be able to use the extreme uppers or extreme lowers. And I can't remember which one they said was factory original. I want to say it was the lower ones and to go up. And then you get this little piece here, which is a little window, because you can see the holes don't line up, so you have to cut this out bigger so you can get in there to get to the nut. So this little window gets welded on there after you get it open, reinforces that. So I've got them both all ready. This one I had to do some clearancing, had to heat it up and beat this corner in. It was a little too rounded. The square corners on the box would not fit. What I was doing was I put in the upper arms just temporarily to get a measurement from here down to the floor. I ended up putting a level on the car on the pinch welds here. The car is actually perfectly level on the jig. So, and then I put it on this way on a couple spots to make sure the car was level this way. But what I ended up doing is tied a string on here. This is where the front K member attaches. And I hung it down to see how close it was. And as you can see there, it is so close that I'm not even concerned about it. It's probably 1/16 of an inch off. But what I needed to do is I needed a reference point to measure from here back to these boxes. So they're both in the identical position. And then once I got them into position, you can see this little 1/4 inch hole here. What I did is when I got the boxes where I wanted them, I drilled a hole in there. So now I can just take and pin that, and it'll be in the exact position they need to be to weld this in after this is all welded up. So this is a reinforcement plate that gets welded through all these holes to siphon the side up, and then you can come right in, you weld all the way around this piece here, you don't have to worry about this. There's a piece that goes in up here, it gets tacked in, and it gets welded all the way up around the frame. So, and so that gives you nice, because I've had my old Mustangs, I've torn those things to pieces drag racing them. I'm doing this more for getting the instant center of this car correct, because the biggest problem there is this attach point is too high. This has to come down 1 inch to 2 inches in order for me to get this instant center in on the anti-squat line. You want to be on what they call an anti-squat line or above the anti-squat line for launching, and basically it's a drag racing thing. But it helps on the street too. If you're familiar with any kind of Mustang, if you see them take off, the back end's always squat. So that's what this procedure is it keeps the car from squatting. When the car squats, you lose traction. Because what it is, it's not that the car body's coming down, it's the rear end is trying to suck up in, which brings the body down, which limits your traction, so you can't take off quick. So when you get on the anti-squat line or above with it's a triangulation of the upper control arms and the lower control arms. They come to a point somewhere, and the anti-squat line starts at the bottom of the rear tire up here and goes up to about the center of the camshaft height, right at the front axle or front wheel. There's an imaginary line, and then you want those control arms to be somewhere on that line or above that line, and then it can be short or long depending on what you prefer. But stick cars, automatic cars use different settings, but that's the general idea. And with the factory location and the factory springs on these cars, these control arms are going uphill like this. If you're looking at the car, you know, they literally angle up. So dog getting carried away, someone's walking their dogs probably. But the arms angle up and the other ones angle down when they should be kind of triangulating towards the front, which they don't do. So that's the worst part of this setup is this. So, and then I did buy some bed liner, some of this to do these wheel wells. They're going to get a couple coats of that on there to fill that in, and then I'm also going to use it in the cowling there where I had all that rust damage in here. So all that's going to be coated. Everything's got some dust on it from painting those car parts in here, but that whole thing's going to be treated. I've got the what do you call it, converter, the rust converter stuff here I bought. It'll turn any remaining rust to black, and then I'll put on the truck bed liner on that stuff. But then the rest of this needs cleaned up. So what I did today is I tore that whole front suspension apart, and this is the one out of this car, the blue car, and it's got a lot of grease on it, but I think there's a lot of undercoat on there too. That's some of the undercoating job on there. So this one's a pretty big mess. So I'll see which ones of these arms are the better of the two, clean them up, powder coat them. Those are the spindles off of the GT car, which should be identical to the spindles off of this car. They didn't have different spindles. But as you can see, I went ahead and got this one welded up today. Finished welding this about an hour ago. It's got 3 16-inch doublers welded on both sides, inside and outside. And then I basically fuse welded the seams all the way around. And every place there was a tab where they tab together like a puzzle. Everything's welded solid, so that thing is never going to come apart. And there's my alignment hole. Like I said, then there is a little triangle piece that goes on those. Here, these little fellas. And there is a left and a right. Let's see which one is which here. Okay, this one. Left and right. And then that fills in a little bit of a gap where the frame is, so you weld around that the best you can and all around the top. So that one's done. And I'm just about out of argon. That thing is getting real low. I may end up running out when I weld up the other one. Okay, as far as the airplane, pretty soon I'll be working on that. Once the weather is getting nicer out, the car will be put on hold, and I'll get back on to finishing this job. I did bring out a battery charger and topped off the battery, and was able to start the plane. Had no problem. Stumbled a little bit a few times, but started pretty good for setting all winter. And it's almost completely out of gas, so it was really tough to get it to prime up what gas was in there. So again, there's just a few things I gotta finish under the cowling, get that buttoned down. I'm not going to be concerned about trying to fit any doors in here yet. That cowl will probably be off enough times before I'm done. Get the canopy made. Again, the mold's right there. The oven's sitting there. I'd kind of moved everything around in here to make room for paint, and I had to push the plane in the gyro outside when the weather was semi-decent. But you know, it was only there for a month or so. We were in some really cold weather. 20s, 30s is all it was reaching for high for the day, and just cloud cover the whole time. It's just miserable. So get back on this thing and be doing the updates on this till it's finished and ready to go. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Just to let you know, I am just decided to come out and do a little work on this. It's like I say, it's still a little too cold. We did have some nice days that did break into the 70s, but usually they're in the week time when I'm at work. And by the time I come home, it cools down real quick. And I just got back to work about 2 months ago, and just been too tired to come out after work, working all day. So I'm getting old, lazy. But that's kind of where I'm at. Try to get some of this stuff cleaned up, and then once this is cleaned, I can try to deal with any little bit of rust that's left in here. This has all got to be kind of painted or undercoated before I weld these boxes in. But there's no reason why I can't get the seam seal out, and I don't think there's much seam sealing to do out here. You know, I can probably do spots like this, but I want to do that before I do the primer, the epoxy primer. So just basically finish cleaning, get those welded in, because when I prime it, I want that all welded in and primed at the same time. I'm going to try and spray some primer on the insides before I weld them in. So, but I've been trying to figure out the angles on this. I'm probably going to have to go with adjustable uppers so I can set the pinion angle, because these boxes may not be in the proper space fore and aft. It may throw the pinion angle too much or not enough. And then it will also give me, if I have to move the lower control arms, as you can see there's 2 rows there, so as you move from front to rear, rear to front, it is going to change the angle on the differential, and it's going to need to be compensated for. So, but you know, the upper control arms, I want bushings on this end. I don't want rod ends, because I want the soft ride. That's why I bought all new stock rubber bushings for everything. Turns out the lower control arms, you can't find the bushings for them. You cannot find them. It's like they don't make the damn things. But turns out the bushings I did buy are for the front lower control arms. You know, the front lower control arms, there's bushing in front and the back. And those 2 bushings are the same bushings that match, well, one of them matches the front pretty good. But this bushing for the upper, this one here actually fits in the front of the lower one too. It's just a tad too wide to fit into these boxes, so I have to put it in a lathe and trim the bushing down so it'll fit. But I can use the front ones for that, and then the ones set that I bought for the front, the upper ones work for the lower front also. But the ones for the lower, I can use the one on the back and use the upper on the lower. It's kind of confusing, but I got enough that I can use them. I got enough to put everything together, put it that way, without using these. But I've been looking at springs. I need to lower the car at least 1.5 inches, and then this has to be lowered probably at least another inch plus to get it in the ballpark. It's really going to boil down to, because that's kind of what I was doing here, is trying to figure out where everything was angling wise and tire wise. I got all these marks on the ground. This is where the center of the axle is. That's the upper control arm attach point, lower control arm attach point. I dropped plumb bob to find all these. So the tire sits here, and then the tire is a 24.5-inch tire, and it's almost 3 inches of clearance to the fender the way it was before I tore it apart. So by dropping 1.5 inches, that'll drop my fender clearance down to about 1.5 inches. So it'll look a lot better. But it's still not going to be enough there. So I'm not sure if I'm going to try and extend this down with some reinforcement plates. They do make a unit for this, but I think theirs all go up, and I don't know why they go up. There's no reason for them to go up. It's the opposite of what you actually need. Plus, that's a $500 frame, and you have to tear all this out. All this comes out. This whole box here has to come out all the way around here. These got to stay for the rear seat belts, but this whole thing has to come out for that box that goes up in there. That's $500. So, but I'm looking at some motorsport springs that'll drop it at inch and a quarter, inch and a half, and then but you really can't find out until the full weight of the car's on it when it's all finished. So, but I'm going to make that adjustable before that ever happens and do a preliminary, so I know all the dimensions. That line on the floor is off the pinch weld, and then from there I know how much it was off the ground based on the measurements I took of all this stuff. So kind of confusing, but in the end you'll see what it's like, and it should make a night and day difference on the street. I want this thing to be able to get out of its own way. So alright folks, I guess that's going to be it for now. Just wanted to get something out there. I've been meaning to do it for the last couple weekends, and I just haven't been able to squeeze it in. So that's going to do it for now, folks. As always, feel free to leave any comments, questions, or concerns, and I'll try to keep videos coming as best I can, and I'll answer any of the questions and comments that come along. So for now, I guess, we'll catch you again for the next video then. So for now, this is Dino Don out. Thanks for watching, everybody.